You are listening to Contraband.
Do this work on this platform however you want. But when you're live, you're only allowed to be in portrait mode, which I hate. I feel like years from now, the dividing line between my generation, old people, you see this gray, don't act like I'm not an uncle, and younger people is going to be how they watch stuff. Everybody's going to be watching in portrait mode. And I am of the landscape mode generation, which I don't know why I feel that way because I'm old enough to remember when everything was in square mode. I grew up with the TVs with a booty where, everything was in just square. I grew up with VCRs, or as we used to say, VCRs. But I always forget about this when it's time to do this. I always forget that I got to be in portrait mode. So that's why I'm always late because I'm like, oh shit, I got to be in portrait mode. So, first of all, how is the reception? How is the sound? Can y'all hear and see me? I always want to make sure that y'all can hear and see me. And so, how is the sound? How is everything? And let me know in the comments. And of course, again, if y'all have any questions, feel free to ask them. Feel free to, uh, you can request that we go live if you want to, if you have some questions. But I was thinking about, first of all, yesterday, um, I live really, really far. My sister said the first time she came to visit me where I live now, and she might be even on this live, that she said I live behind God's back. So I really live far out. So we didn't have a wake up call yesterday because like sometimes like the internet don't work in this whole area. Like you can't run a card at the grocery store and they like do it old school, like in 1865, where they write your name down in a book and you just pay later. I live in one of those old school rural Black communities, but we didn't have internet yesterday, so I couldn't do a wake up call. But apparently everything is going on now. Probably Elon Musk, man. Y'all know like three dudes control all the internet now. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and the dudes from Google. They control the internet. But I was going to talk yesterday about, and we can talk about anything y'all want to talk about today. But yesterday I was going to talk about, old school evil, like Dick Cheney died. And remember how much we used to hate Dick Cheney? Like he was the epitome of evil. But now, as evil as Dick Cheney was, he seems almost quaint now. Like that little twirly mustache evil almost seems quaint now. Like the evil dudes who used to tie people to railroad tracks, they seem quaint now. They used to laugh like, lean back when they laugh and stroke their cats. Those dudes seem quaint now because we got like a whole other level of evil because those evil guys used to remember how white people, I don't know, maybe like up until like 2 years ago, they used to just pretend that they weren't racist. And I feel like we're back in an era where like they're cool. Everybody's cool with being like, go back to Africa. Go back to, if you don't like it, go back to your country. And like, this ain't our country. Like, we didn't build it, which is funny considering the fact that now they're saying, well, y'all elected Mamdani and now everybody's going to leave New York. Yeah, go back to your country. Yeah, yeah. Let this, we cool. Like, let us have this. Like New York, I was listening to one of my favorite, probably, I think, like is one of the smartest people living today, one of my favorite intellectuals, Dr. Greg Carr, talking about how, his position and mine is that like America is not a real place. It's not a real country, right? Like, but countries aren't real anyway. But it's just lines people draw on the map, and other people agree to them. What if nobody just agreed to those lines? Like that's part of what this whole immigration thing is like this shit is ours, and y'all can't come here, which is wild because like for most of human history, things don't work that way. But regardless, Dr. Carl was saying that America is not one country, or it's like New York is its own multiracial polity, and then you have like the rest of the country. You got some stuff like Los Angeles is too, for the most part. And then you got the rest of the country, and that's the part that's failing. Like what we're going through right now is really like Alabama and Mississippi people trying to preserve the last dying gasps of a failed empire. We've seen the statistics that say like the blue states pay and basically subsidize all of those red states. And this is the last dying breath of a red state, because like this is what, like, if you study the Roman Empire, if you study when it was Great Britain, this is what happens before like empires die, before people die, right? We're going through that right now, but the evil that we're seeing now, it when you compare it to like the old, like, remember we used to hate how much we used to hate George Bush and how dumb we thought George Bush was. And now George Bush seems like almost like an George Bush is Dr. Carr compared to Donald Trump. But remember, like, we used to pick at him because he couldn't say nuclear. And remember, he said, like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, I won't be fooled again. And we used to think, like, having a president, it used to be embarrassing having a president that says stuff like that, and how racist we thought the Bush administration was and the Reagan administration. But now, like, that seems like quaint racism. It seems like they were just, like, playing racist on TV. And we got some real, like, old school Beauregard type racists, right? Like these motherfuckers got like old Confederate post Civil War racism. I was about to say postbellum, but like, because we always hear antebellum, but then why does nobody say postbellum? Anyway, again, drop some questions in the comments if y'all have anything. The other thing is that we were contemplating like a roundup of the crazy shit that's been going on during the week. Like we sometimes so much crazy stuff is going on that we don't realize, like, we miss a lot of stuff that affects Black folks because they're just like inundating us with all of the white nonsense. So we're just, and I'm plugging in this phone, y'all. So, please forgive me, but we forget how much crazy stuff is really happening in America compared to like a year ago. And we can't cover it up. Like, I mean, if I'm being honest, it's impossible to cover it. So y'all should be seeing, we're thinking about doing some roundup, kind of like a tele report of white nonsense. But some I've seen what am I seeing this week? Again, I think I've talked here about Alabama trying to like get an agreement to send state prisoners to other countries. And what's funny is that there are states like Alabama, Mississippi, most notoriously, because this is the thing that people don't know about SNAP benefits and their expiration. Like, who gets SNAP benefit? They always talk about states' rights. Who gets SNAP benefits is run by the state. So the government says, this is what qualifies you. Like, this percentage of your population is below the poverty line, and we send you this bulk money. The states administer it to the individuals. So a lot of those states have been so restrictive with SNAP benefits. Like, for instance, that's how Brett Favre got to build a volleyball court with SNAP benefits, because they don't, like, the federal government sends them money and they don't give it to the people, right? And so they have this pile of money that's supposed to go to poor people and they just let them starve. Well, anyway, Alabama is suddenly giving out SNAP benefits and giving this money that they weren't before to the people that need it because, SNAP benefits expired. That's one of the things. Like, it's hard to talk about these kind of like nuanced things uh, on like a CNN, right? Where you only have like 17 seconds to say something. And so I think that's why platforms like this are important because you can talk through and explain, right? Like it's not just SNAP benefits or poor people. It's not this just that they're withholding SNAP benefits or money that the American government, our tax money has already been gone to pay for. So it's not that the government ain't got it because it's shut down. They're saying, hey, we got it because again, we send the money to the states. Like it wasn't like we're going to send the money to the states last week and the states were going to send it out. Like we were going to send it Friday and the states were going to disperse it Monday. This money is already sent. They're just saying, fuck these poor people. That's the important thing to understand. So all of these people who are demonizing like SNAP benefits and people who see it, they're just saying fuck poor people. They're not saying we can afford it. They're not because that money already exists. I saw a question here asked me to talk about the collaboration with Jordan Peele. So yeah, so if you didn't see it yesterday, we released exclusively, but you can see it anywhere now. It's been announced all over now. A trailer for it's called High Horse, the Black Cowboy. So yeah, I can talk about that finally because like you always hear people like I can't talk about it right now. So I can tell you what happened when Jordan Peele made Nope. And so Nope came out in 2022. So this thing like 3 years ago. Jordan Peele, there's this scene in Nope. It's like in the first 10 minutes where Kiki Palmer is talking about, uh, well, she's explaining that the first image ever seen on film was a black man on the horse, which is true. That scene that she was talking about is called the Moyberg clip. And the thing about the Moyberg clip is no one knows, they know the horse's name, they know where it came, and it's framed like 609 times. No one knows who the black man is that's on that horse. So Jordan Peele, when he made Nope, he got really interested in it and he went down this rabbit hole. And the reason he got interested in became cowboys because he just realized, oh, the reason they don't know who that guy is because it was just like so many black dudes who were cowboys, rode horses. So for 2 years, he just like his company, Monkey Paw, filmed these beautiful scenes, montages, interviews all across the country. The Compton Cowboys. I don't know if you've ever heard about the Compton Cowboys, but there's this. I mean, the name is self-explanatory, but they're cowboys actually in Compton. There's also a group in Connecticut that takes young guys and trains them to be horsemen. And not just horsemen. Most people think of like, riding a horse and tending cattle. But I'll get to that part later. But one of the things is, horseshoes is a very lucrative industry. And it's so lucrative, because there are very few people who know how to do it. As a matter of fact, Yale has a program, like you can go to Yale and major in making horseshoes. I forgot the name of the specific trade. But so there's a program in Connecticut that has been taking these like guys who were kind of like in the youth criminal justice system and training them to be horsemen. And like they've been getting into the Yale program. And so, you film that. So he filmed that story. The best young rodeo person is a black person. Then he got into like land laws. Because what are cowboys? He started talking about land laws. And then he got into the history of it, cowboys and westerns. And so he got like all of these interesting things filmed. And then it was like, oh shit, this guy's trying to make a real movie, like, a Nope or a Get Out. What are we going to do with all this footage? And so apparently somebody said, hey, do you know this guy named Michael Harriot? And so I get this call one day and it was like, hey, you want to see some shit? And they showed me all of this footage. And it was like, yeah, but it's not a story. We need to make it a story. And would you help us? And the only thing is, like, we need something. We were going to talk a lot about country music too, because now again, this began in 2022. And they sat down with this family who was talking about how they were really raised, not really on R&B or, blues music or anything like that. They were really raised on country music. And like, they knew all the country artists and knew the whole history of country music. It was 2 years, 3 years ago now. And it was the Knowles family. Like, there's this before Cowboy Carter, before this whole thing with we trace that through before Beyonce decided she wanted to make a country album. We have a mom say, "Yeah, man. I mean, I don't even know, cause like I don't know what she's gonna do next, but I'm gonna tell you this. Like, y'all know she like really was in the country when she was growing up, and she used to tell me about all these old country artists, and so by the time I was on, she still hadn't made Cowboy Carter, and nobody knew what she was working on. So we filmed all this interesting stuff, and we made it into a movie. So what we did is when they called me and asked me about, like, anything about country western, I was like, hey, this seems crazy. This is crazy. So my first job, or kind of second job in life, when I was 16 years old, my English teacher got me a job as a DJ at a radio station. So all through high school, I worked at a country music station. So I know a lot about country music. As a matter of fact, I think I wrote about it on ContrabandCamp earlier this year. I actually have a Country Music Association award. The Country Music Association Awards is not just for like singers. It is an award that was created by radio broadcasters. So they award like a small market broadcaster of the year. There was this day when Pete Seeger came to our radio station, and I was talking to his brother who was sitting in the lobby, and I convinced him, like, he should say, you want to hear some shit? Like, people always ask me, you want to hear some shit? You want to see some shit? And he played me these tapes of Leslie Riddle, who was the black man who kind of almost invented country music, the guy who taught the Carters, who is called the first family of country music. And nobody had heard these before. He had them on like reel to reel. And he let me listen to him, and I was like, man, you should go play that on the radio. And he's like, I don't have permission. So this was 1990. He played them, and it just so happens that it was during this weekend where like everybody, all the rednecks in the country were in this one place, which was next to my hometown because of this NASCAR race. And like, we won a CMA, and not only did we win a CMA, but the response to that got Leslie Riddle's estate to give him permission to release them like as a box set. And so, yeah, I knew a lot about country music. So we kind of decided that if we're going to talk about all of these different things, rodeo and history and horsemen, we need to kind of define what is a cowboy. Cowboy, we decided is three things. It has three elements: the land, somebody who works the land, the image of the cowboy, and the culture of the cowboy. And so using those, we created this 3-part documentary that's going to be on Peacock. But the interesting thing is, when Jordan Peele was imagining all of this, he imagined it as a true crime story. Was it stolen? What happened to it? Where did this image go? And so we approached it in that way. We're going to solve a mystery. So the original name was actually called Heistery, a mix of a heist and history. But it's still under that framework of, we're talking about something that was stolen. Where was it hidden? And why was it so valuable that it was taken away? And so that's the story behind that. It comes out on November 20th. I'm really excited about it, man. I mean, so one of the things that like you're not going to see in any of the press releases is like Raphael Sadiq did a whole country soundtrack. Who is, again, he is also one of those people who grew up on country music like me. Like, I grew up, we had one station in my hometown that played country. My grandmother liked country music. My mom's favorite artist was Willie Nelson. So Raphael Sadiq composed this entire country music score for the 3-part series. And it's got, again, Tina Knowles, the Knowles family, beyond. There's the whole Beyonce. So many people. Pam Grier, Glenn Turman, Bun B, Rick Ross, like all of these people who never left. Because we all know, like, we got that uncle or that aunt who be wearing cowboy hats and love some country music. And it turns out like this thing is kind of encoded in our DNA. And so I can't wait for you guys to see. I could talk about this thing forever. But I think there is so much we couldn't tell. Like, because what we have to understand is the premise of the movie is that there is no such thing as, there were no white cowboys. They did not exist. The white pioneer, all of that stuff you hear about white people, the pioneers, the cowboy, that did not happen. That's the crazy part of this. Not that black people did something, but that we believe that a country that was where 1 in every 5 people in this country, that was colonial America up until all the way up until 1860. 1 in 5 people were Africans who were brought here to do the work for white people. It is crazy to believe that white people were out there riding horses, right? It's a crazy thing to believe when you think about it. Like, they just indoctrinate this stuff in our head that if we apply critical thinking to it, it doesn't make any sense. So, like, wait, they had all these slaves, but the white dudes was out there riding the cattle? No, that did not happen. Never, ever. There were no white cowboys. It was not the word cowboy, we show in news clips from 1700s for sale. A field gal, because what women were the ones who were the horticulturalists who knew the rice technology, they were called field gals. And they would have advertising for sale, a field gal and a cowboy. There were no white cowboys. There's this misconception that, like, the white men were called cowhands. They weren't called anything because they did not exist, right? The interesting thing is, and this is not just like early America. The interesting thing is, if you read during the New Deal, they went across the country, and one of the things they did is they talked to the few living people, all the living people who were former slaves, right? So I love reading those old narratives from enslaved people. You can read them on the Library of Congress website. I hope I download them because I feel like they're going to just destroy them. And they're categorized by state. And so if you read, and some of them are even, they have audio recordings of them. But if you go back and read them or listen to them, one of my favorites is every time they ask like the people, like, so did the white men who were cowboys, and they just burst out laughing, like, oh, white people couldn't ride no horses. Like, it was so, like, one of the things that was so rare is like white people didn't have really good riding skills. So, like, people like George Washington, people like, what's his name, Nate Bedford Forrest, they weren't generals before. They weren't military men before. Like, Nate Forrest wasn't a military man before the Civil War. George Washington had no military training. The only the reason they were put in charge is like, oh, this old dude who could ride a horse. Like, most of the white dudes couldn't ride horses. And George Washington could ride so good, they was like, oh shit, he got to be the general. That motherfucker can ride. Because most of the work on horses were done by black men. They were the ones who took care of the horses. Again, there were no white. First of all, horses are not native to America. Horses came in with the first black people who came in, 1526, the Aeon expedition brought the first horses to America. Well, technically, it's not the first because there were, like, in prehistory, before men existed, there were like tiny little horses in the plains of North America. They went extinct in like 10,000 years ago. But the first horses on the North American continent were brought here with Africans. And as a matter of fact, like all the besides buffalo, the cows that we call cattle, that DNA is from Africa. The scientists know it. Like, oh, these are like there were no milk cows in Europe. Those are African animals. They trace the DNA. And so again, when the human trafficking industry started, they went to Africa. They knew where to go to get like rice growers. Oh, we got to go to what they call the Gold Coast now and get rice growers. They went to the plains and got horsemen. They went to the people, the Akan, and got iron workers. So blacksmithing is an African art. Like there were no blacksmiths in America or in Europe coming out of the Dark Ages. That was an African art form. And so all of that, all of these things that we believe about these white cowboys did not exist. Even the song, like, the cowboy anthem, Home on the Range, like a black dude wrote that. It's this crazy that we believe all of these ideas. The Lone Ranger was black. Like it's based on Bass Reeves. Now, if they could have, the thing about it, like everybody knows that, but do we think, if we thought critically, do you think they would have written a story about a black man and made it the most famous cowboy in the world? If there was a white man that did that, because they didn't. It's just a thing that we believe. The story, The Searchers. So in like, I think 69, right? John Wayne made this movie, The Searchers. It's considered one of the greatest films ever made, right? So it's about a man whose daughter was kidnapped by Native Americans and he tracks them down. And the whole movie is just him tracking them down. That story is about a black dude. It's wild to hear these things, like to see these images and to think like people think like it was just white dudes riding around in the North American plains doing, tending to horses and riding, herding cattle. It is crazy to believe that. Like, it is crazy to believe that they would have made black people buffalo soldiers and white people could have done that. They couldn't. So, yeah, I hope you watch it. There's so much more. We talk about, the USDA, the origins of black land laws, all of this. It's called High Horse, because I think that's a better title because it talks about, we interviewed people, families who own land in Kentucky, right? Like, like the first 15, 20 winners of the Kentucky Derby were black. And then they like out. And the reason they stopped being black is because they outlawed black jockeys because white dudes couldn't compete. Same thing with rodeo. Like black men were outlawed because they couldn't compete with the, actual cowboys. Like, to be fair, it really wasn't fair, right? Like a make-believe cowboy who just got a hat to compete against a black dude who actually did the job for generations, right? Like when you ever see the image of of cowboys or rodeo where they jump off a horse and tackle a cow or a steer or a bull, that's called bulldogging. That was invented by a black dude named Bill Pickett. My dog is named Bill Pickett. So this black dude who grew up in this all-black town in Texas. It was started by it was started by slaves who escaped, and they tended their own cattle. And this 13-year-old kid one day, what they did is they trained their dogs to keep their cattle. They had bulldogs and they had Great Danes, and they would train them to keep their cattle. And the dude was watching how the bulldogs keep the cattle, and he would see that the bulldogs would jump, bite the lip of the cow, and wrestle the cow down just with the lip. And he started doing it. Like he started biting the lip of cows. And he started entering white rodeos and winning. And they banned him and all black folks. And he became the first, like he was the king of the rodeos, except he couldn't compete. So look up Bill Pickett, my puppy, my dog, because I keep calling him a puppy. My dog is named Pickett. Yeah, I'm back. That was Elon Musk. He is attacking us, right? We know. I'm gonna blame Elon Musk. Like they blame everything on black people. Like they blame everything on thugs. I feel like we should just start blaming everything on Elon Musk. Like we shouldn't blame it on white people. We should pick one white person to blame everything on. Yes, Jacqueline Proctor, this this conversation is recorded and it'll go up. Like it takes a minute for it to process, but it'll go up after it processes. So again, we lost all the other questions that anybody else had. But that's the story of how this thing started with Monkey Paw and Jordan Peele's company. It wasn't like Jordan Peele knows who the hell I am. It was because Jordan Peele hires black people. And one of the things I love most about this production company is like it's run by a dude named Jamal and a black woman named Keisha. Anything else? I also feel like I want to start doing some more stuff that isn't like so embedded in politics. I think we're so inundated, and I think politics are important, but we're so inundated with politics right now that I want to kind of talk about other stuff because, and it's not that like you get tired of politics because I get tired of politics too, even though I've been covering it for years. But I think that there is so much political talk that we sometimes reach the conclusion that activism and resistance is politics. Politics is actually activism and resistance. And I want us to understand like that is only one methodology of fighting. Like most, like when you think about Du Bois, when you think about King, when you think about Marcus Garvey, when you think about, Frederick Douglass, they were involved in politics, but they were like embedded in politics, right? Like they used politics as a tool. And so often like one of the criticisms I hate when people talk about like white black people always vote Democrat and the Democratic Party don't care about black people, we'll still vote for them. And the thing that always bugs me about that is, one, I know those people don't necessarily know black people. They be just saying shit. And it's because like black people never thought like they voted and they thought it was important to have all the rights as every other American, and that politics is important because policy, you don't want any, like the other option is to let white people or to let everybody else decide your future and your economic and political and social future. So it's important to participate in politics, but that narrative presupposes that we ever thought that politics or politicians were going to save us, right? That's a crazy thing to believe. So I think we also need to focus on more parts of resistance than just politics. What's the guy named Deontay? I think his last name is Kyle, the black guy. Like I saw him say something the other day, and it made me think because I'm not a religious person, although I was raised in a very religious family, and I think the black church as an institution is important. But I heard him say the other day, niggas got to start praising the Lord more, get back to praising the Lord. And what I think what he meant by that, and I'm not going to, assume what he meant, but I also think that there is like, it's cool to like go out and dance and listen to some music and twerk. But I think that ain't the only outlet for joy. Like there used to be outlets for joy where like niggas used to praise the Lord. We used to be in community and elevate each other on a spiritual level and worship and celebrate. And I'm not talking about like Baptist, but like, again, I'm not a religious person, but I love me a good gospel choir, right? And I want to start doing some like more community traditional stuff that shows forms of resistance and how we relate to each other and how we connect to each other. That is not just politics, right? Like we got to go out and vote. Nah, we got to go out like and do some other stuff. Like, remember when you like, I mean, they still do it in the community where I grew up. Like, remember when we used to just get together and do stuff? Like, hey, everybody gonna get together on next Thursday afternoon, and we're going to just like have we used to have a bazaar, like all the arts and crafts people just be selling their stuff, and then we're gonna have some sack races for the children, and then it's gonna be some ladies cooking hot dogs and some dudes cooking fish, and we're just gonna do that. Like, it's not a fundraiser. We're not gonna make no money. It's just a thing that we do. Like, I grew up doing that. My mom started like a bazaar like on like Juneteenth. I grew up, and the old men be out there. They'll be sore for weeks because they be out there trying to play basketball, like bobbing for apples. Y'all, it's like, yeah, niggas need to start back bobbing for apples. Which, first of all, now that I think about it, we don't. That was disgusting. In the age of COVID, we do not need to be bobbing for apples. But what I'm like, stuff like that, like communities, like we don't do things, we don't talk about things. You know, I mean, the most we got now is a good HBCU homecoming. Uh, we need to, first of all, we need to start, I want to start out, we need to start ranking homecomings. Like, I know this is going to be, I'm scared to do it. We need a homecoming and we need to rate classics. All of that could be included. We need a ranking, man. We need a definitive ranking because I think because there are so many black people who live on the East Coast, y'all really think Howard homecoming is the best homecoming. It might not be in the top 5, bro. Like, if you ain't never been to the Magic City Classic, like, if you go to the Magic City Classic, you be like, oh, like, how, like, I'm not starting any fights, but that's some of the stuff I want to do. Right? We need a definitive ranking of the classics. Homecoming. We're doing some cultural stuff. We're doing some music, some film stuff. I think Brooke Obie has some stuff coming up with us. But I wanted to start doing some more stuff like that, man. I want to start doing even some investigative reporting. But we need to expand because we've been like one of the ways that these authoritarian regimes break your will is that they get you hyper focused on what they want to. Like, half of the stuff, like, we dislike Trump so much, like we be mad at him for doing stuff that I don't give a fuck about, but because it's like just disliking him is kind of a personal form of resistance. Like, I don't care. I realize, like, I don't care about the Lincoln bathroom. The fact that he like this can just crush the White House without congressional approval just on his own authority is indicative of like the authority that his party and this country has imbued him with and have just handed over to him. I really don't care about the White House, but we get so hyper focused on the resistance that he kind of it's almost like a form of mind control. Like, we got to resist everything. And what that does is preoccupies us with stuff like bobbing for apples, praising the Lord, having a bazaar. What we gonna how we gonna take care of our artists? We're so for real, like they're snatching all of the grants. And, a society is only as good as its writers and its artists. So many people have said different versions of that from, Maya Angelou said, we survive in direct relation to our poets and blues singers included. So if we ain't having no bazaars, if we're not praising the Lord, what are our children going to do? Like, the thing is, think about all those singers that who grew up on their first interaction with music. Their first interaction with learning music was a church choir. We ain't praising the Lord no more, though. Like, it ain't have nothing to do with religion. Just think about that, though, right? If everybody's sampling, we always talk about, like, they don't even make no live music anymore. We ain't praising the Lord no more. There ain't no church drummers. There ain't no dudes who learn the keyboard. We let Lil Yachty have them. We ain't praising the Lord no more. Where are artists gonna come from? Where are those singers who sang first soprano and realized, oh, they could sing because I sang on the youth choir, and then I went to high school and got on the chorus, and then I went to college and majored and became a music teacher, and then I went back and taught some music at the school. But now you got to get that guap. Nobody's playing music, partly because we ain't praising the Lord no more, and it ain't got nothing to do with the Lord. Somebody asked, are they the same masters? Yeah, I've heard that, right? Like the white man's religion. I don't believe that, right? So one of the premises in my book is that there is a thing called the black religion. And the black religion, like we think that like because we call it Christianity and it's the same Bible, that we're worshiping a white man religion. First of all, like Jesus wasn't in a white place. If you're a Christian and if you believe in Jesus, he didn't live among white people. Ain't no white people in the Bible. How is it a white man's religion? It spread in Africa just like it spread in Europe. And I also think that we're worshiping practicing a whole different thing. Du Bois talks about um, what we practice is a hybrid of Islam, African spirituality, and a little bit of Christian sprinkled into it. But we hid all our other stuff in there because, they were scared of us. So if you in your Baptist church, but if it's black, when it's time for the offering and you take your money and instead of, passing the plate, you walk up to the table and the keyboard player is playing and you march it to the table. That's Islam, bro. You marching around the Kaaba. Shouting is African spirituality. Like the idea that we didn't adapt our ways of knowing into this form of Christianity of a white man's religion is why I call it the black religion. It's got a little bit of Christianity in it because Christ is a universal story. Like, you know, you can find in every culture the story of Christ exists in every culture. A man who was born from a virgin, from Zoroaster to Ra, the man who was born of a virgin, who was crucified and came back to life. There's like 1,000 versions of that story in religions. So I kind of resist calling it a white man's religion. And I also know that what I am talking about is the institution and the community, right? Like, I don't care, like, whether you practice which commandment you believe in. Because, like, what you're talking about is a institution of black people that we used for our advancement. Um, we can talk about Christianity and religion because and how it relates to black people because when we think about people who say black or white man's religion, all of the stuff they don't like about Christianity ain't in the Bible anyway, right? Like you just talking about white people, right? Like they justified slavery with the Bible, but we know it wasn't in the Bible. So you're just talking about stuff that evil people do, stuff that mean people do, right? Like if you get a group of men together and you give them any book, they're going to eventually use that book they're going to grow some long beards. They're going to abuse women. Like if you build a society around them, it's just going to happen. You're talking about the worst parts of human nature. And in a Christian country, it happens. In a majority Muslim country, it happens. In a majority Buddhist country, it happens. In a atheist society, it happens. Hitler did it with Nazism, right? It wasn't a religion, right? Like we're talking about the worst parts of human nature and people who capitalize on the worst parts of human nature to gain power. And we can talk about the worst parts of human nature. We can talk about the historical spirituality of a people. We can talk about communities, but I don't ever want to blame a thing on a religion because most of the stuff that people in those religions, like, it's so open to interpretations. So is it the religion or is it the nature of man? That's an interesting question. Hey, man, we've been on here for an hour. Thank y'all for joining and asking these interesting questions and supporting Contraband Camp. And I hope you keep supporting. I hope you follow not just Contraband Camp and not just me, but all of those journalists that contribute. Follow them too, right? Like support them in all of their endeavors with Brooke Obie, Taryn Finley, David Love, all of those people, Tiffany Cross. Just support each other, man. I'm telling you, I have a friend named Ebony who's a poet, and and I used to take it for granted, but she used to always end with, "We will win." And now when I think about it, y'all, like I love that. Like we will win. We're gonna win. We'll see y'all later, man. We'll talk to you. We'll see y'all in these Contraband Camp streets or pages or internets as long as Elon Musk don't pull the plug. And even if he do, we will win. We'll holla.
You are listening to Contraband.